There comes a point in every person's life when the choice is no longer between success and failure. It's between movement and stagnation, between growth and decay. Those who rise beyond the ordinary share one trait. They live as if failure simply does not exist. Not because they are blind to risk, but because they understand that their mind decides the boundary of possibility. The idea of failure loses its power the moment you stop giving it permission to exist in your reality. Acting like failure is not an option isn't arrogance. It's mental discipline. It's a declaration that you refuse to negotiate with weakness, doubt, or hesitation. When you adopt the mindset of no retreat, something profound happens inside you. Your mind stops entertaining alternatives to victory. You stop thinking about what you'll do if things don't work out, and instead start asking what it will take to make them work. It's a psychological transformation that shifts you from a spectator of your own life to the architect of it. You eliminate the mental exits, the quiet compromises, and the soft cushions of backup plans that so often dilute focus. You begin to realize that most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they leave themselves room to. When the mind believes there's a way out, it will always find it, even if that means abandoning the path to greatness. That's why champions, leaders, and visionaries live by a different code. They don't keep one foot in safety and the other in pursuit. They commit all in, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. This level of commitment forces the human mind to operate at its highest capacity. You think sharper when your back is against the wall. You act bolder when you know there is no plan B. It's in those moments, when retreat is no longer an option, that potential turns into power. You see, the human mind is naturally conservative. It protects you from risk, from embarrassment, from pain. But that same instinct also protects you from growth. When you declare that there is no retreat, you override that built-in hesitation mechanism. You begin to live in a heightened state of awareness. Decisions become clearer, effort becomes purer, and purpose becomes stronger. You start functioning from a place of necessity, not comfort. And necessity, not comfort, is the birthplace of greatness. Every person who has ever achieved something extraordinary has faced that invisible wall. The point where doubt whispers, you can still turn back, but those who act like failure was never an option keep walking. Not because they have no fear, but because they've chosen not to feed it. They've burned the bridge back to the old life, the old excuses, the old limits. That's not recklessness, that's clarity. When you know where you're going, hesitation becomes the only true danger. The power of no retreat is that it simplifies your world. It removes the clutter of indecision and focuses your energy on what must be done. You stop scattering your attention across options and start channeling it into execution. You stop chasing security and start creating certainty. That's what separates those who dream from those who do. One group hopes things will work out. The other refuses to accept any outcome but success. There is a moment in every great pursuit when the universe tests your conviction. It will ask you, do you really want this? And if you've left yourself an exit, you'll take it. But if you've closed every door behind you, if you've burned every bridge back to doubt, then you'll have no choice but to rise. So act like retreat was never an option. Because once you do, you'll find that your potential was never the problem. Your permission to fail was. Commitment begins where comfort ends. Most people misunderstand commitment. They think it's about passion, enthusiasm, or the excitement that comes with starting something new. But real commitment isn't born in moments of inspiration. It's tested in moments of resistance. It's easy to say you're dedicated when things go your way, but the truth of your conviction only reveals itself when everything around you starts to fall apart. Acting like failure is not an option means you've reached a level of psychological commitment that doesn't bend to emotion, delay, or disappointment. It means you've made a promise to yourself that stands regardless of how you feel in any given moment. When your commitment is absolute, your energy becomes pure. You stop negotiating with yourself. There's no more. Should I keep going? Or maybe this isn't meant to be. The decision has already been made. You're going to see it through. That certainty liberates you from hesitation, because hesitation is just the mind's way of protecting you from discomfort. And when discomfort no longer frightens you, the world opens up. You become unstoppable, not because you're invincible, but because you no longer require conditions to align before you act. You move forward whether the circumstances are ideal or not. This kind of commitment changes your internal wiring. It reshapes the way you interpret setbacks. Instead of viewing obstacles as signs to quit, you see them as confirmation that you're on the right path, because the road to mastery is supposed to be difficult. The struggle isn't a signal of failure. It's evidence that you're pushing beyond your previous limits. That's where growth happens. That's where the next version of you is being built, one challenge at a time. People who act like failure isn't an option aren't superhuman. They've just decided that their word to themselves is unbreakable. They treat their goals like sacred contracts, not suggestions, not experiments, but obligations of honor. That kind of mental commitment creates a quiet strength, a calm certainty that others can feel. You start walking differently, speaking differently, even thinking differently. Every action becomes a reflection of that inner promise. Psychologically, commitment creates alignment. Your mind, emotions, and behavior move in one direction. There's no internal war pulling you in multiple ways. You stop wasting energy fighting yourself, and that focused energy becomes momentum. You start performing at levels you didn't know existed, not because you found new strength, but because you stopped leaking the strength you already had. When the human mind locks in with total certainty, it finds a way to make the impossible possible. That's the beauty of deep commitment. It transforms effort into identity. You no longer try. To be disciplined, you are disciplined. You don't or tempt. To stay consistent, consistency becomes who you are. When your identity shifts to match your purpose, quitting no longer feels like an option, because it would mean betraying yourself. So if you want to rise above the ordinary, make the kind of commitment that doesn't require constant reassurance. Decide once and mean it. Because when your commitment becomes stronger than your circumstances, success stops being a possibility and becomes an inevitability. Fear is not the enemy. The misunderstanding of fear is, most people treat fear as a signal to stop, a flashing red light warning them to retreat into comfort. But the truth is, fear is simply feedback. It's information. It's the mind's way of highlighting something that matters. The moment you understand this, fear stops being a wall and becomes a compass. Those who act like failure was never an option have learned to read fear correctly. They don't run from it. They run toward it. Because they know that what they fear most often hides what they need most. The psychology of fear is fascinating. It exists to protect you, but it also confines you. It tells you, stay safe, even when safety means stagnation. And the people who achieve greatness understand that progress and comfort can't coexist. They train themselves to step into fear intentionally, to lean into the discomfort instead of avoiding it. It's not because they enjoy the feeling of uncertainty, but because they recognize that the discomfort of growth is always more valuable than the illusion of safety. Fear, when faced with awareness, transforms into energy. That energy, when directed with purpose, becomes fuel. Think about it. Every major decision in your life that changed you required courage. And courage isn't the absence of fear. It's mastery over it. It's the ability to act in spite of it. Those who refuse to fail understand this deeply. They don't wait for the fear to disappear. They act through it, knowing that movement itself weakens fear's grip. The longer you hesitate, the louder fear becomes. But the moment you move, fear loses power, because fear feeds on inaction. Philosophically, fear is the shadow cast by potential. You only feel it when you're near something meaningful. The presence of fear means you're standing at the edge of growth. That's why people who play small often feel comfortable. They've built a life far away from their potential, where fear rarely visits. But those who are building, creating, striving, they live close to their edge, where fear is a constant companion. And instead of resenting it, they respect it. They know that fear is a teacher disguised as a threat. When you learn to turn fear into fuel, you gain control over your own psychology. You stop letting emotion dictate your choices and start using emotion as data. You feel fear and think, good, this means I'm exactly where I should be. That mindset flips the entire equation of success. Because fear is no longer an obstacle. It becomes a signpost that you're on the right track. So, don't aim to eliminate fear. Aim to transform it. Let it sharpen your awareness, increase your focus, and remind you that you're still alive, still growing, still reaching. Fear only controls those who try to avoid it. But the moment you face it head on, it turns from a cage into a source of power. Remember this, the most powerful people in the world still feel fear. They've just decided not to bow to it. So when fear shows up, don't retreat. Step closer. Because behind that fear lies the version of yourself you were always meant to become. Discipline is the bridge between desire and destiny. It's the point where your emotions surrender to your purpose. When you act like failure is not an option, discipline becomes more than a habit. It becomes a way of being. You stop chasing motivation because you realize motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls with your mood, with your environment, with the weather, with how people treat you. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel, it asks, did you do what needed to be done? That's the essence of greatness, the ability to move with purpose, even when your emotions plead for rest. Discipline is not punishment, it's alignment. It's the process of bringing your actions into harmony with your vision. People who rely only on emotion live reactive lives. They're constantly controlled by how they feel in the moment. But those who are governed by discipline live deliberate lives. They understand that emotion is a visitor, but discipline is a resident. It doesn't depend on mood, inspiration, or external validation. It comes from within, from a deep sense of self-respect. Because when you say you'll do something and you actually do it, you build trust with yourself. And that self-trust becomes an unshakable foundation for everything else you pursue. There's something powerful about doing what you said you would do, even when no one's watching. That quiet consistency builds internal power. Every act of discipline strengthens the mind's ability to command the body. Over time, your will becomes stronger than your feelings. That's when true freedom begins. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to do what you must regardless of resistance. Because real strength isn't about how loud your confidence sounds. It's about how steady your actions remain when no one's applauding. Philosophically, discipline is the art of self-mastery. It's the recognition that your greatest opponent is not the world, not circumstances, not other people. It's you. The undisciplined mind seeks comfort. The disciplined mind seeks clarity. The undisciplined person waits for the right time. The disciplined person creates it. Every day becomes a test of allegiance. Will you obey your emotions or your mission? Because one leads to regret and the other leads to transformation. It's easy to act with intensity once in a while. Anyone can sprint. But discipline is about endurance, the ability to keep showing up long after the initial excitement fades. It's the quiet repetition of excellence that compounds over time. You become the result of what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally dream about. That's why the disciplined never panic. They trust their process. They know success isn't built in bursts, it's built in patterns. So, understand this. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It's the price of it. It's the force that transforms intention into reality, potential into performance, and promises into proof. When emotion fades, discipline remains. And when discipline becomes who you are, failure stops being possible, because consistency itself becomes your greatest power. You cannot live as if failure were never an option while identifying as someone who could easily fail. The mind and the identity must agree, or the conflict between them will sabotage every effort you make. You can't act like a winner while thinking like a victim. You can't move with certainty while secretly identifying with doubt. Every action you take is an expression of who you believe yourself to be, and that means true transformation begins with reprogramming your identity. Before success ever becomes external, it has to become internal, a belief so deeply rooted that your behavior naturally aligns with it. When people struggle to stay consistent, it's not because they lack willpower. It's because their actions are at war with their self-image. If deep down you still see yourself as someone who tries, but never truly becomes, every goal will feel temporary, every effort conditional. That's why identity work isn't surface-level self-talk, it's psychological reconstruction. It's about redefining who you are at the core. The moment your self-concept changes, your habits begin to follow. You start doing things not because you're forcing yourself to, but because that's simply who you are now. To reprogram your identity, you have to challenge the narratives that have shaped it. Most of us are walking around with identities we didn't even choose, built from what people told us, from failures we never healed from labels we accepted without question. But when you decide that failure is not part of your story, you start editing that narrative consciously. You begin to replace limitation with power, excuses with ownership, fear with self-belief. It's not about pretending to be something you're not. It's about remembering what you were capable of before the world taught you to doubt it. Reprogramming identity means acting from the end, living today as the person you intend to become. Speak like them, think like them, move like them. That psychological embodiment creates momentum long before results appear. The brain doesn't distinguish much between what is vividly imagined and what is real. It begins to adapt to the dominant image you feed it. So, if you constantly identify as capable, disciplined, and certain, your mind and body begin to mirror that state. Soon what once felt forced becomes natural, and what once seemed impossible starts feeling inevitable. This is the difference between temporary motivation and lasting transformation. Motivation is external. It pushes you. Identity is internal. It pulls you. When you start living from your higher identity, consistency no longer requires effort. It becomes self-expression. You don't have to convince yourself to act. Action becomes automatic because it aligns with who you are. So if you want to change your life, stop trying to fix your actions and start upgrading your identity. Every thought, every choice, every small discipline is casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Keep voting for greatness until it becomes your nature. Because once your identity evolves to match your vision, success no longer feels like pursuit, it feels like destiny. When you start living like failure was never an option, something shifts in the way you view time, purpose, and legacy. The game changes. You stop playing for applause and start playing for impact. You realize that success isn't about collecting achievements. It's about creating meaning that outlives you. Legacy thinking is not about ego, it's about responsibility. It's understanding that your life is a message, whether you intend it to be or not. Every action, every decision, every standard you set ripples far beyond your immediate life. And when you truly grasp that, your choices start carrying a different weight. People who operate with legacy in mind approach their work differently. They're not chasing the quick win, they're building something that lasts. They're not trying to impress the world today, they're shaping the foundation for tomorrow. Legacy thinkers don't measure their worth by moments of success, but by the depth of their contribution. They know that impact doesn't come from bursts of inspiration. It comes from sustained purpose, from the daily discipline to keep showing up when the excitement fades, from the willingness to give their best even when nobody is watching, from the quiet understanding that every act of integrity compounds over time. You see, when you play for eternity, your motivation becomes stronger because it's no longer self-centered. It's no longer about what you can get, it's about what you can leave. That shift elevates your energy. It gives meaning to the struggle. It makes pain purposeful. Suddenly, the obstacles that once frustrated you become the very things that refine you. Because legacy isn't built in ease, it's forged in endurance. Every trial you overcome adds credibility to the message your life will one day tell. Philosophically, legacy thinking forces you to confront mortality in a powerful way. It reminds you that time is limited, and that limitation gives urgency to existence. When you live as though every action is a seed planted for the future, you start valuing each moment as sacred. You speak differently, treat people differently, and make decisions with a long view in mind. You stop asking, "What will this get me now?" and start asking, "What will this mean later?" That simple shift transforms not only your success, but your soul. And here's the truth. Your legacy isn't something you leave behind after you're gone. You're building it right now, in how you think, how you act, and how you respond to difficulty. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, integrity over convenience, faith over fear, you're engraving your signature on the world. The future will read your life as a message, and that message will either inspire others to rise or warn them of what happens when potential goes unused. So live with legacy in mind. Let your work, your mindset, and your resilience speak for you long after you're gone. Because when you act like failure was never an option, you don't just succeed, you create something timeless. And that's the only kind of success that truly matters.